Welcome to the For Waukegan podcast, where our love for God compels us to be for Waukegan.
This podcast shares real stories of faith, resilience, and community transformation to inspire unity, deeper relationships, and love for our city in the name of Jesus.
Hosted by
Adi Camacho,
Eugene Edwards,
and me, Raul Ochoa. We'll explore how God is moving in Waukegan and how we can be a part of His greater story.
Join us as we journey together, sharing stories of hope and action in our community.
Well, welcome to the For Waukegan podcast. Today we have a bonus episode. Today we're going to have a conversation about a really cool experience that we just had an opportunity to be a part of. And so today we'll share a little bit about what that was like, talk about some highlights and maybe some lessons, some things that we learned in the process. So Addie, tell us, where did we just come from? What did we get a chance to do?
We just went to Nike.
Beaverton, Oregon.
I mean, we stayed in Portland.
For sure.
But
which was down the street.
Literally what was it, 5-minute drive?
Yeah, it was about 5-10 minute drive. Everything was nice and close. So that was the good thing about Portland, except the ocean. But that was an executive decision to just go see the ocean.
Which was a great call.
It was a great
call.
That
was a great call.
Nice 2.5-hour ride.
Great conversations.
So we had a beautiful opportunity through relationships and friendships that kind of organically grew into this opportunity to visit the headquarters of Nike in Beaverton. Mm-hmm. It was Adi and your sister Ada.
Yes.
We had our videographer Jeremy and his son Levi, who is the cheeseburger champion of the world. Levi is the cheeseburger champion. That young man can eat. Good for him.
Yes.
Healthy appetite. Healthy young man. Healthy young man.
My favorite part was when he was like the kids menu. We were trying to convince him to do the kids menu.
Yeah. And Levi weighs all of 45 pounds soaking wet. I mean, the guy is a little guy, but he can put it down. And it was myself and my son Ricky. So I was really, really grateful to be able to share that with him and share it with you guys. It was a really good time. But tell us, Adi, what was your favorite? Well, before we get to favorite, what was your initial reaction? We've been back for 4 or 5 days now.
Yes.
What has been your take of that trip?
The experience. I want to definitely call it an experience. Well, there was a lot of things actually. I'm going to get deep.
Sure, go for it.
We're going to get deep today.
About. Yeah, let's do it.
So actually, I attend a book study where we're reading Crazy Love by Francis Chan.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out Francis Chan.
And we were
Please listen.
Yes, please listen. So we were reading the last 2 chapters together. So it was chapter 10 and 11. Yeah. And actually, in the book, it talks a lot about the transitioning of like leaving your job and like going into the field, and even though the
field mini ministry or
full-time ministry, you know, and that's been one of the things that, you know, we've been talking a lot about personally and for me, and it was just like almost like a confirmation as I was literally reading this chapter, because it was talking about the leaving of a job, right? And then the other part was like it had Nike. It used Nike as an example.
Really?
I was like, that's no coincidence.
That's super cool. And you read that the week before we left? Or?
No, I read that like the day after.
When you got back from the trip.
We got back from the trip.
That's wild.
And I didn't plan for it. I didn't even read the chapter ahead of time, but we were literally like it was like 6 of us. We were sitting down. Yeah. I was soaking in this like chapter, and I was like, after we're done, I was in tears.
And it gave the example of what? Of an employee working at Nike? Or?
So it gave an example of a marketing commercial that they had done for Nike. For those of you that are watching for the first time, we went to Nike, and we were invited by our dear friend TT
and her husband Jeremy
from the Communion podcast, and she's a marketer herself.
Yes.
And then I went to school for marketing, so that's kind of like how we
that's cool.
Connected the connection. And so when I was reading that, it was like a huge like just confirmation from the Lord, like and it since we were also talking about like being scared, it even included like that extra bit and piece of like don't be afraid and like go for it.
That's, praise God. That's pretty cool.
So
when you get back, you went right back into your book study, and it had a beautiful reference to Nike.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It just like was like after the whole trip, it was like all together.
For sure.
into one. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Cool.
What about you?
Man, what about me? There's so much to talk about. So there goes my phone. Don't worry about it. We'll leave that there. So there's so much to talk about. You know, we met John Ollinger at Lilly maybe about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing his story about leaving Nike. So John is, I guess, our first introduction to Nike. And John worked there, and he worked the Kobe campaign. And for those of you that know me, and like sneakers have been a big deal for me for a long time. And I think that hearing his story and hearing his process of all that he did, like no one in the room probably knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But I understood everything he was talking about. You know, when he was talking about product and marketing and the stories and the campaigns, I'm just like, yes, I remember that. And so that was like the first time. And I remember as soon as he got done talking, he went in the hallway and I walked out to the hallway and we just connected and we talked there for like 40 minutes. And we like sneaker nerded, and then we talked about ministry, and then we talked about life, and then we're in tears, and then like the whole nine, right? So it just had like this bromance, right? It was like super cool.
So you had the TT version.
You had the TT,
I had the TT
I had
version.
Jeremy, right? I had Jeremy. You know, which then led with meeting his wife, Erin, who has assisted us greatly with this podcast. And so I remember that day, part of like, I think the beauty of this journey that God has allowed us to go on over the last 7-8 years has been like this desire to really like love people and what that means, right? Like when you love people and you genuinely have an interest for people, it opens up opportunities, relationships, and doors. And I remember having a conversation with someone in Indianapolis one time. He talked about being a relational millionaire. So he was like, man, I don't have a bunch of money or anything, man, but I'm a relational millionaire. Like if I need something, if I have a question, like I know where to go. I know who to find. I know how to get there.
Resources.
Exactly. So resources. And so I remember just like that kind of sitting on my heart, which was the same weekend that I met John, was like that conversation that I was having with someone. And, you know, for me, it was like this, it's always been like this fine balance of being curious about people and their stories without viewing people as opportunities or viewing people as means to get what you want. So I remember just being really careful about like not, like, you know, my first instinct was like, John, how do I get to Nike? How do I get shoes? Like, you know, like that was like my flesh, right? So like my desire was like, man, I want to go to Nike so bad. And, you know, I remember just joking with him when we were there, like, man, I'm going to Portland one day. And he's like, yeah, whenever. And I'm like, don't tell me that, because whenever turns into next year, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, whatever, next month. And so that, I remember like just having that moment there was like, we're going to go to Portland. Like I knew we were going to Portland. Like I knew it was going to happen.
You were making it, going to make it happen.
I felt like God, Lord, like I wasn't going to make it happen. I felt like God was going to create those opportunities for that to happen. And I'm grateful that I got a chance to take my son. So heading back, it was just one of those moments of just gratitude, of just being like, you know, like, there was nothing that we did or nothing that we could have done to kind of make these things happen, to come together, to have an invite, to have people who have been a part of what we've done from a distance and then introduced us to just beautiful people on the campus. And to have that opportunity to do that with my son, I think was beautiful. So if you don't think that God hears, that he listens, and that it matters to him, just know it does.
He sure does.
It does.
And he makes no mistake about it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think that was the beauty as I was coming back. Like, man, all these little things these little small things in our hearts that we love or that we find to be cool or that we find to be interesting, like they matter to God too. Like, cause we could have went to, I don't know, you name it. We could have been to Apple's headquarters, right? I wouldn't have been as exciting. It would have been cool. It would have been nice. And we definitely would have done it. But I wouldn't have been as excited. But even in God's mercy and his vision and his desire to care for his children, it was Nike. It didn't have to be, but it was.
You know what I found? I mean, we could talk about like the day, right? That day. Sure. Because we were there for a few days, but Tuesday was the actual day that we got to meet TT and her husband. And we were there at the actual like headquarters. I know when we initially got into that parking lot, I was fangirling.
Yeah, over TT.
Over TT.
Shout out to TT and to Jeremy.
Yes.
And to Storm and to Sol. Beautiful little girls. Beautiful.
They are so cute and adorable. which their names are just so awesome. To hear
cool.
The story of that was awesome. But just like your first initial reaction of like getting there, like when we walked off, we're just going into the garage, I feel like was a exciting moment.
Yes, very exciting moment. So I don't think you understand. I've seen that entryway. So when TT said, take a picture here, this is like the classic entry. I've seen that entryway. I mean, I think it might have been 2003, 2004 when I saw pictures of like the campus and knew that it existed.
Yeah.
And knew that there was a Jordan building and knew that there was a Bo Jackson building and knew that there was a Tiger Woods building, like these mythical places, you know what I mean? It's like the lost city of Atlantis, right? Like, so people know it exists, but no one's ever been there, right? So I've never known anyone to go to the Nike campus, but I know that it exists. And since I was young, I remember like, younger, right? So 2000, call it 2004, right? So you're talking about, 20 years ago. I knew that it existed. I knew it was a place, you know what I mean? And so to drive in and to walk up to those gates, to walk up to the Wizard of Oz, it was crazy. It was crazy for me. I was like, man, like this is so cool.
It was surreal.
And then the first building you walk in, to be like no phones, no cameras. You can't even take your phone out.
We couldn't even document
it. I took my phone out and TT looked at me and was like, put your phone away. And I was like, all right, I'll put my phone away. And to see the cool things that were in that building, to see some of the things that we can't even talk about. No, we can't. It's just really cool things, right? Things that have history to them, a place where there's a deep legacy of excellence and of marketing and storytelling, right?
I think that's like the beautiful part is like they were able, or their marketing team and overall, or just the company of Nike and overall has been so good at storytelling for generations after generations that even when we walked in, like, and we left, like as we left, like I was more passionate about wearing Nike.
Yeah.
Because it had a history to it.
For sure.
And just to be able to walk in that space because you walk in, it's like a mini museum.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to take pictures.
For sure.
So we fully enjoyed that, I feel, just even for ourselves. And to see Ricky, who's definitely, it was my first time meeting Ricky. And just to get to see him like fully invested in it and knowing everything, like he knew the history even before we got there. And I was like learning from him,
for sure,
his passion and everything and seeing you guys like with your kids,
for sure,
was pretty awesome to watch.
Like, that was cool. And again, same thing, like it was special for me, but to see my son's face and see how excited he was and to see him light up in that space was cool. It was special. It was special. And then as we continue, so, we weren't sure what to expect. I didn't really have expectations. I think walking up to those gates and taking the pictures, if they said, hey, you got to go now, I'd have been like, thank you, bye. Where's the employee discount store? Like that would have been enough, right? But, we spent, I don't know, over 3 hours there. 3 hours going from building to building and having lunch there and meeting people. And every building that we went to, there were relationships of folks who were living their faith out in the midst of that behemoth of a monster known as Nike. And to hear their stories. And like you said, when you walk and you leave out of there, you see that there's people, there's intention, there's heart, there's a desire to do things and do things well. It did make it special,
I think one of my favorite parts was like when we would walk. I mean, TT's a very outgoing person, right? Sure. And very social. So she would know like a person. Every building we walked to, she would know somebody.
Yeah, she was the mayor of Nike.
She really was. The mayor
of Nike. Yeah, she knew everybody.
For TT. But what I loved was it was her community.
For sure.
Her community, like her community of believers, her community, like, I mean, she was inviting people just to Thanksgiving. So that was really awesome to see that even in such a big company, there's people who are genuinely there to serve the Lord in whatever they're doing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that was really awesome to see.
That was. And it was a community, right? There were people that we met that she knew that were like part of what they call their Shepherd Club, right? Which is their Sunday gathering where they have meals together, they share time together, and they're intentional. And like you said, these were people that at some point were a part of that. And they were welcoming back into their home and inviting them over for Thanksgiving and having relationships with folks. It was really cool to see her fully be who God created her to be in that space and own it and be so comfortable with who she is in that space. And her husband being comfortable with who he is too, right? Which is a little bit more laid back than TT, but also awesome, right? In his own right? And still had people and had relationships, and were able to see him and all the cool things that he does for Nike that Jeremy and I spent an hour and a half just sneaker nerding, like literally, like if you know me, man, I could have been there all day. And he was talking about the products that he's helped launch and put together, from like crazy Kobe's to like crazy LeBron's, stuff that's just wild. And we were just having sneaker nerd conversation. The next day, I was trying to be a good friend. I texted him. I'm like, man, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And he was like, man, thank you for nerding out with me. I always appreciate a good nerd. So it was fun. We were definitely sneaker nerds.
Yeah, I can't consider myself a sneaker nerd. So
good. You shouldn't. It was kind of shameful.
I was like, when she asked like, "What's your favorite shoe?" I was like, the one I'm wearing.
Pro-Keds or like what were you? XJ900s?
I was wearing like what are they called? Court.
I forget how young you are. You don't even know what XJ900s are.
Exactly.
Shout out to the 80s babies out there.
But I will say that I really enjoyed like the after part, like the communion part that we were having, because we went bowling. Which I'm not a bowler, guys.
No, she's not. We can confirm that.
We can confirm
she's not a bowler.
I cannot.
No. Your sister though.
She's
your sister. She did not want to bowl. She came and she was like, nah, I'll just watch. And then we talked her into it. All of a sudden, she's strike, spare. She's just tearing it up.
She's the low-key bowler, guys. Yeah, okay, low-key bowler. All right. I am not.
No.
Ricky is also not.
No, he's not. Ricky's not a bowler. He is not a bowler.
But we definitely had a good time. I think my favorite part of that there was two key moments, and I think they were just conversations with TT that I was having, one-on-one conversations. Yeah. One of them was when we got to go into the employee gym.
Yeah.
Like on base at Nike when you guys were having
play basketball, a little one-on-one action. Jeremy and his son, me and my son.
Yeah, getting to see.
In Coach K building.
Yeah.
Surrounded by the Coach K hardware. Shout out to Duke and everything Coach K has done. We were in the building of Coach K. I know this means nothing to you, Adi, but I'm still going to say it.
I just know he was a coach, a board coach.
It was a really cool building. It was one of the most modern buildings, and they had a beautiful gym with a beautiful hardwood floor and exercise equipment, and they had like the full like rehab, like, put on the spacesuits and massages and oxygen tanks, like the craziness. You name it, they had it. Anyway. That's where we were.
And as they were nerding out and they were literally playing basketball at these courts, TT and I were having this conversation of like what encouraged her to like not completely leave Nike, but do side projects
enter her next season.
Enter her next season and in her podcast and like the nonprofit area. Yeah. And she said something that kind of really spoke to me. She said, "The Lord has given me all these gifts." And he asked me like, how was I using them for his kingdom?
Amen.
And that stayed so much with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just like was in my head, like all the entire trip after that was like, how am I using my gifts for his kingdom?
Amen.
And she's like, there's so many ways. Obviously full-time ministry isn't for everybody, right? But I think there's that calling in my life that I identified with her, and her being like a Latina who went to school, marketing, and how she's moved up, and kind of just like that passion to continue to like grow. I was able to identify a lot with her.
That's awesome.
And then when we were at the communions, we were playing bowling, and you guys were nerding out again.
Again.
And we were upstairs, she said something to me. She was giving me like, I asked her this question, like, if you could give me one piece of advice, like, what would it be?
Don't bowl. Never bowl again.
That was definitely not. That was definitely not. That was the piece of advice you would give me.
I would have given you that in that moment. Yeah.
But she actually said 3 important things that I thought were so awesome.
That's
One,
cool.
She said, pray. She said, pray. Like whatever you want to do or whatever direction you're moving into, pray.
Yeah. That's good.
Which reminds me of like what our,
For sure. Our
values,
core values and beliefs are. Yeah.
And then she said to me, she's like, second is relationships.
Yeah.
She's like, they're everything.
It sounds like the Mosaic podcast structure here. Okay,
it
prayer,
sure
relationships.
does.
Okay, what else?
Well, the last one is a little bit different, but she did say, which kind of flows into like the discipline and fellowship, right? But it's like, don't think that even though the person looks like they have it together, they probably don't.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, she's like, and she said it, she's like, I don't have it together.
Yeah.
She's like, but I'm learning and following Christ in that process.
Yeah.
And so that helped me like feel at peace. Like for all those young adults that don't know where you're going or what direction you're going, like, trust me, you're not alone.
Or that feel that you have to be at a certain place in order to start heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like you have to reach some sort of level. No, that's good. That's good. And that relationship piece is so important. I think that over, my life, I've learned and God has revealed to me that people who are successful, people who have had opportunity to do cool things or impactful things in life, they want to share those things. They want to share those stories. Like, so if you as a young person or as a young adult or as a youth or anybody, if there are people who you're like, man, how do I do what you do, or I'd love to just kind of learn from what you do, like, ask the questions. Like, people are more than willing to help if it comes from a genuine place of really wanting to learn and to be curious. Like, I think it would have been really different if I would have been like, hey, Titi, do you think we can come down and hang out at the Nike employee store? She probably wouldn't have made time for that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, that's cool and all, but like, we're busy. And they're busy people.
They are, yeah.
And I think it was really like that genuine desire to like, man, like we would love to see what God is doing in Portland. We would love to see what God is doing in you and your family's life that allowed and made them value us coming down and taking time out of their busy schedules. Because I mean, that we got in on Saturday. Saturday night they flew in from Mexico. They were on a vacation. Right?
They were.
And made time for us. And I think that's the beauty of, like, when Scripture calls us to love people and to love God. I mean, let's love people in a curious way, in a way of wanting to know their stories and know what drives them and what their why is. And it really leads to beautiful opportunities to be in spaces and spend time with people who really are inspiring people. You know what I mean? Yeah. So just ask questions.
And as we're talking about like this community and this podcast, right? Like, I know that at the end of every episode, we typically talk about like one moment that like reflects that for Waukegan, story.
How we saw God before Waukegan.
So how did you see this week, for Waukegan?
How did I see God before Waukegan? I think it's just that, right? It's just like you've got these kids from Waukegan, right? Who, as I'm growing up, never thinking that these would be the opportunities that I would get to do through ministry and through the work that God has called us to do. But yet, here we are, just being able to experience these cool spaces and these cool opportunities. And Nike was cool, but like, we got to go to a Portland Trail Blazers game. We got to go to the ocean and see some of the locations near, like, where the Goonies were filmed, the 80s Baby.
Twilight was filmed, guys.
I don't know what Twilight is, but the Goonies was also filmed near Portland. And then we got to see some of my old friends we talked about, the Roloff family. We got to go to the Roloff family farms. Shout out to Amy and to Matt Roloff, big friends. If you're
watching this.
Like, we basically grew up together. Me and my family watched I don't know, like 36 seasons. I don't even know how.
We were there taking a picture.
We went to the Roloff family. Big deal for me and my family. But to do that and to kind of spend time with my son, I think was just, watching God just kind of care. And his desire isn't just to care for me, but he's to care for his people and to care for us. And the fact that these things matter to him was special. Yeah. I talk more about my son, but then I cry. I don't want to do that.
It's okay. You can cry live today.
No. We're good. How about you? How was this last week for you, and how have you seen God before Waukegan?
I think it would be in the same area. Like, on this trip, I was able to get to meet the next generation of Waukegan and meet Levi and Ricky, and just to see their spirit and get to know their stories. I didn't even know Ricky went to one of our
live camps where he was almost mauled by an animal. I mean, we definitely learned that too.
Yeah, we also learned that I was not there that year. So, AB,
convenient.
We're coming for you.
A lawsuit coming.
But it was so genuine because we did some hardcore researching.
Yeah, you guys went back and dug into the old notes, to the files.
Yeah, that was probably key favorite moments.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to say that when we were at the coast,
yeah,
and just watching those waves like hit the rocks with such power was such a metaphorical thing to watch.
Yeah.
In so many different ways, because it reminds me of like what the impact of like what Waukegan Mosaic can have in this community.
Yeah.
And that's something that really stayed with me. And when we were playing like
Hughes and Q's,
which I am not great at.
Great game. If you don't have it, look it up. Hughes and Q's.
Yes, actually, Target is having a buy 2 get 1 free in case you need 3.
You don't need that many of them. Okay, if you need, for all you hoarders out there, you can get 3 of these.
But it was just one of those moments where it's like we played something together there.
Yeah.
But we were able to bring it back.
For sure.
And share it with the rest of like our families.
Yeah.
And like you went to go buy one, I went to go buy one, and we were able to like play it with a different community like here in Waukegan, and just like that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Of
like the waves. Yeah.
Yep, like the waves of that relationship and community and the love for Christ, like being able to do fellowship with one another.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I remember as I was standing in the ocean too, one thing that I was thinking about, which, I think kind of comes back to this idea of like, of us being so small. Like when you stand in the ocean, right? Like you stand there and you obviously don't see the end of it, right? It just goes on forever and ever. You see these beautiful, crazy waves that are just causing havoc on the coast. And, we look out into this ocean and you realize that the creator of that, of all of that, of the vastness, you can't even imagine what kind of wildlife and what kind of beauty lies beneath the places that eyes could physically see. But the creator of all of that also cares about me going to Nike. And I keep saying that like it's a weird thing, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like the creator of all of that, like we're insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but yet we matter so much to him, which is just mind blowing. Yeah, absolutely. So finish this off before I start crying on this camera.
No, we want to see you cry. But and thank you for sharing.
It's coming though. It's coming. Episode 4.
But I mean, I second that. Like, I think it's so beautiful, and thank you for sharing it. Thank you for, including me and my sister in this journey. Yeah. Because it's a journey and just heartfelt conversations and car rides and moments that we'll never forget, that even when you look back at the pictures, they don't even grasp.
They don't really grasp
our experience, and I hope it's not the last.
It's not. And I think that's the beauty of this trip. I think it was evident that there is enough relational equity, there was enough connection there that I think that there's an opportunity for us to share this with others, and to be able to take folks from our environment and broaden their view of what God is capable of doing in the spaces that he's moving in. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like when you look at it, like, I don't know, those Nikes you're wearing could be designed by someone who loves Jesus to a point that you don't really fully understand.
That's crazy.
Because we ran into people like that.
We did.
We were in the Jordan building. And we're staring at all these Jordans.
Talk about it.
1 through 39, all white. 6 of them are in gold because that's how many championships he won. LeBron doesn't have 6. But anyway, we're in that building, right? And we meet this young man who's there that TT knows. We were worshiping at his church the day before. Rose, shout out to Rose Church. What a beautiful experience that was. I wish you guys would have had a chance to experience that with us. But anyway,
but it's okay.
Rose Church. And the young man, loves Jesus, is a man who's after all that being said, right, he has a very important role in Jordan, Brandon, what he does. Like, he was talking to me and my son, and he had just got done talking to Michael Jordan about Luka Doncic, and they're like, and my son's like freaking out, right? Like, Jordan, because Jordan was saying that Luka is a little bit lacking on defense, and my son was like, I've been saying that for so long, and Jordan feels the same way. Like, he was just kind of going crazy, right? But that is important to know. We sometimes feel like God is limited to our church buildings and our 4 walls, but He doesn't have boundaries and he doesn't have limits. Even your Jordans.
He doesn't.
Could be impacted by those that love Jesus. You know what I mean? I think that's beautiful.
That's Praise pretty God. Awesome. That we got to experience that. So I think the Lord is working.
He is.
He's definitely
wherever working. He wants, with whoever he wants.
At any place and any time.
That's right. That's right.
And don't forget that we're the For Waukegan podcast, and don't forget to be for Waukegan.